With whichever way you look at it, it's Yamuna Jivana.
I know, that's the problem.
I never do that work. I was told to be obedient. It's after. Take out all my scriptures and personal. Already? I'm done. Let's go. Give it to my. Let's move on. Make it easy. Should we start? Hare Krishna. Close to the king, I can go to the microphone. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Jutapakaranam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Pre Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. It's 2:35 and between the three of us we have 2 hours. And it's right after lunch. Honestly speaking, you all must be very tired because it's lunch time. I'm also very tired. There's musical chairs going on among us. I'm also very tired, so if you tend to doze off, I won't mind. If I tend to doze off, I hope you won't mind. At the same time, I don't think I will doze off because I'm very nervous also, because the topic that we were given is my personal relation, my personal journey in relationship with the Holy Name. So, one, it's really intimate, it's very personal, right? And second, it's intimidating to kind of speak that in front of everyone. It's one thing to do with a group of people, it's another thing to do it with YouTube facing you, you know? I was thinking, our memories only last so long, but YouTube is eternal, almost like the spiritual world. So it's a little intimidating. But I must say that I'm very inspired, and I was very much appreciating for a little bit that I did participate or heard the presentation done by Her Grace Prematarangi Mataji and Himangi Mataji, that, they're just free-flowing about their personal journeys in relationship with the Holy Name. And I was, gaping in awe. Actually, my mouth fell down thinking, how are they so comfortable with their, and because I've been like, oh my goodness, personal journey, Holy Name, my personal journey, Holy Name. And they were just, they weren't asked to do it, and they just very freely gave. So, they're very merciful. But besides that, they're very realized and very secure, so they're able to. But I must admit, I'm very nervous. So in this introduction, which I haven't finished yet, I've taken most of my time. It's kind of a strategy, as you see. So I'm hoping to share things a little bit chronologically. I actually put some thought into this this morning. So I jotted some notes about chronologically what are some things that have impacted me and my relationship with the Holy Name. So we'll go through that. I also have references. One is my cell phone, and you'll see why. Another one is Japa book, and you'll see why. I'm hoping to end soon, so the others who are here on this panel, who are more senior to me, more experienced than me in chanting the Holy Name, and certainly more realized than me, can actually spend the majority of the time. So, Hare Krishna. So, how did my personal journey in relationship with the Holy Name, how it all started? When I got out of college, I had this seeking mode of seeking something that meant something to me. I was doing what they call the spiritual sample plate. You go to a restaurant, you get a sample plate of this and that and this and that. So I was doing some of that. Chinmay Mission, Brahma Kumaris, who else is there? Art of Living. So I was trying this and that. And ISKCON also was part of the sample plate. And during that time, there were some devotees who would tell me, you should chant the Holy Name. So I would go in one ear and go out the other ear. In fact, I would not even pay any attention to them. In my mind, I would say, you chant the Holy Name. Leave me alone. I remember one sannyasi had visited St. Louis, so we went to hear the sannyasi speaking. And right in the middle of the class, right in the middle, he pointed me out. Oh, are you chanting? I said, no. He said, you should chant one round every day. I looked at him. I was thinking, what are you talking about? I won't tell you what else I was thinking in my mind. But it was special in that His Holiness Rompa Swami was visiting St. Louis multiple times during that time of my taking up Krishna consciousness, and being in his presence, his non-intrusive nature really inspired me. A very gentle way of dealing with things. That was something that I truly appreciated. So after 4 times of his visiting St. Louis, the 4th time he spoke about the glories of the Holy Name, and he spoke on Haridas Thakur. And after hearing that class, I took the initiative to actually go to the devotees who were telling me, until then, you should chant the Holy Name, you should chant Hare Krishna, and I was rebellious to that idea. That's my nature, I guess. conditioned nature. So I went and asked the devotee, can you give me some beads? He said, oh, you want to chant the holy name? Oh, fantastic, very good, here you go, beads. And I asked the devotee, so how many rounds do you chant? 16 rounds. 16 rounds. When do you do this? He said, I do it before I go to work. Go to work? 2 hours it takes you to chant 16 rounds, and you do this before you go to work? So this is the first time I visited the devotee's house. And when I went to the devotee's house, he had, nothing in his apartment. Literally nothing. Where's your furniture? I don't need furniture. So it was very impressive. And so I asked him, does this help you? And the devotee said, yes, it helps me very much. I said, okay, let me try this out. So because of that connection with Maharaj, feeling that connection with Maharaj to some degree, I had a negative idea of ISKCON, so I had to overcome that, or was made to overcome that by the mercy of great personalities. And I made a commitment, okay, from today onwards I'm going to chant 2 rounds every day, along with reading a verse from Bhagavad Gita or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but 2 rounds and reading some Bhagavad Gita. Of course, reading Bhagavad Gita at that time doing one of those Jnani programs, where you take Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita and another Swami's Bhagavad Gita and do a comparison. We have something in common with that. And one thing that I must say was very special with chanting the holy name, immediately Krishna gave me strength to do something that I knew was right, but I could never do. Ever since I was a kid, my parents would follow being vegetarian Monday and Thursday. Why Monday and Thursday? I don't know. I guess Monday is Shivji and Thursday is someone else. Sai Baba, okay. My point to my parents was that, hey, if Monday is, if being a vegetarian is a good idea, I mean, you honor a great person by being a vegetarian, should be vegetarian every day. So I took the smart move and said, so I'm not being vegetarian any day. Because if it's good to be, when I want to be vegetarian, I'll be vegetarian fully. That was my point. So I knew that that was something good to do, but I never could do it. When I was in college, when I just got out of college, I decided I'm going to be vegetarian. I told my professor also that I'm going to be a vegetarian. It lasted 24 hours. We're chanting Hare Krishna 2 rounds every day for 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, it was very simple. That was it. It wasn't a concerted, I'm going to be a vegetarian from today onwards. It was just like, that's not what I want to do anymore. And other regulator principles. All within 2 weeks of chanting Hare Krishna, the strength to follow all of that happened like, it was immediate reciprocation from Krishna. Just so kind. I don't know how it happened. I tried prior on my own, didn't work out. Okay, so a little later, 2005, I was not yet initiated, and we were here in Chicago, and I remember a question. Maharaj was speaking from second canto lectures. I'm sure some of the older devotees will remember when Maharaj was speaking from second canto in depth. And so one of the sections was speaking about remembrance. So I like to be a good person to remember things, so I asked Maharaj, how can I remember things that are important to me? So I thought I'd get some good practical tips because I see Maharaj remembers practically everything. Everyone's name, what they did. Like he was remembering Srinidhi, holding Srinidhi's hand. Sham Mohini. Hand while walking in Rath Yatra. So he is very good at remembering. So I thought, maybe I'll get some good tips, right? So he gave me a response. He first said, Prabhupada taught us that to remember something, you should write it down. Okay, that's good. Good tip. In Kali Yuga, remembering means writing it down, just like Vyasadeva wrote down the Vedas. And then he went on to describe the following, which is an audio snippet I want to share with you. This is something I actually try to, I don't try to, I hear this every morning before or during chanting japa, 3 or 4 times every day. See if this works. So, the most important thing. Yesterday, he started on this, and even today, Mother Prematarani was speaking about it, that yesterday in the afternoon session, he was saying, we pay attention to that which we value, right? And what Mataji was saying a little earlier today was that if you value something, you'll count it. All aspects of it you'll measure, basically. So, I didn't understand that, but it was inspiring. I mean, it was inspiring that this is the most important part of he said, most important part of your life. Frankly, I'm still trying to understand what that means. It's the most important part of my life. One thing I do know what that means is that I shouldn't be inattentive. Because if it's the most important part of my life, how can I pay attention to anything else, which is apparently more important because I'm paying attention to it, right? So that's still something that's churning, and that's been something that has been a sort of something that's I'm internalizing still over the last, I guess, 12 years. Some other things, some other sort of points on my journey in relationship with Krishna in the form of His holy name. So in 2008, this was a very significant, start of a very significant, I would say, heart transformation for me. In 2008, we were at Mayapur, Yatra. So I went to my mentor, Nityananda Pran Prabhu, and I asked him, Prabhuji, I'm thinking about this question. What is it that I can do to improve in my Krishna consciousness? Do you remember this? And then he looked at me, intently, thought about it, and he said, act from your heart. I guess I was acting from my head or other parts of the body or something. But he said that, act from your heart. So now there's something else that sort of stayed with me. I don't want to act from my heart means. I didn't even know I had a heart. And so the following Gita Nagari retreat, I asked Maharaj the question, so Maharaj, what does act from your heart mean? How do you do it? Right? So he commented that, it means to act from the platform of the soul. And he said that, how can you do it? Because that was my question. How do you act from your heart? He said that it begins with chanting with feelings. Take your feelings, take your emotions, and you apply it to the holy name. And he said, whatever emotions you have, like today is a hot day. You're feeling hot. Take that feeling of feeling hot and chant with that feeling. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. It's so hot, it's so hot. He gave that example. So I said, okay. I don't know what that means also. So I tried to do that. I tried to identify my feelings and repose it upon the holy name. It was an interesting experience. And along the same lines, I received this instruction many times also, be genuine, be real, be genuine, right? Many times in the course of my Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So in 2008, Maharaj started these things called the Japa retreat in Gita Nagari. I was very fortunate to attend 4 of them, 2008, 2009, 2010, and 2012. I must say those things really had a deep impact on my relationship with Krishna. Of course, and this is, by the way, the 11th Festival of the Holy Name. I've attended all of them except one. So after 10 Festival of Holy Names and 4 Japa retreats, it kind of takes a toll on even a dull person, you know? You kind of get something. So, it's helpful. In the first Japa retreat, something that Maharaj said, so this is where I was starting to understand, I actually have anarthas. I mean, I've been practicing for a few years. I thought, hey, I must be a pure devotee, right? But I actually got a sense that I have anarthas, right? And I didn't like them. I didn't want anarthas. I want to be a perfect person. What's going on? Something that Maharaj said very strongly. So he was giving this whole, the messages are the same in one sense. He was giving back then in 2008 and even now. He was giving this map of the Shikshashtakam verses and how through the Shikshashtakam verses one can make progress in their relationship with the holy name. Right? So the first verse is the glories of the holy name. Of course, we learned yesterday that the first verse also describes the stages of the holy name all the way to prema. But he was speaking at that time. First verse is glories of the holy name. It's an inspiration to come to the bhajana kriya stage where you start to chant. And then the next verse says, Nam namakari bahuda nija sarva shakti tatrarpita nimata smaranena kala. Etadrshi tava kripa bhagavan mamapi durdeva midasham ihajani nanuraga. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is lamenting. The holy name is so amazing, so wonderful, so attractive, so powerful. But me, I have no attraction. Nanuraga. So then Maharaj is describing it. He said that people who are on this stage, they have no attraction. You know why? Because they have this thing called anarthas. And anarthas because of offenses. So how is it that we're going to overcome offenses? It's by the next stage, which is next verse. Trinadapi sunichena taroriva sahishnana manina manadena kirtaniya sudhari. One becomes humble, become tolerant, and so forth. Offer respect to all living entities and wanting no respect for oneself, then one can chant the holy name constantly. Okay? So now we got to be humble. But it can get finer than that. Our Acharya described that, what Maharaj was describing was that, and what stuck with me, what gets us past the anartha stage, or gets us through the anartha nivristi stage, he says, trying to pay attention to the holy name. He phrased it like this. He said, very strong. That attention will take us beyond those anarthas. And more specifically, trying to pay attention to the holy name is what will take us beyond those anarthas. I'm going to read a quote from the Japa book that speaks to that a little bit, of how you can see paying attention and humility are related. So then in 2009, it was a very powerful year for me. Very powerful, very transforming. So some of this stuff is churning within me, Um, an episode happened where I experienced myself, anartha, coming out in a way that I didn't like at all. Some harshness, some way of pride, and it just like, you know? I felt so that I actually took the effort to call Nityananda Pran Prabhu and said, in the middle of work, I was feeling so yucky that I called him and said, I'd like to talk to you about this. That conversation was very pivotal for me in my Krishna consciousness. So we talked about it, and interestingly enough, with his kind help, one thing that I started to realize for myself is that I have some super deep insecurities. Fear is part of this material world. Maharaj was speaking about it yesterday, right? Bhayam dvitiya biniveshitasya. That fear is so strong in this material world. It's something that every living entity who's devoid of the security of being in a relationship with Krishna is experiencing. Fear. And that fear, one of the manifestations, is what modern psychology calls insecurities. That day, after speaking to him and driving back home, I remember weeping like anything, like literally weeping. I hadn't experienced that kind of weeping before. It was just tears falling. And I was, the whole time, I had kirtan going on, and I was chanting the holy name and thinking, Krishna, you're so kind. Because I know you're first of all, the situation where that anartha came out was his orchestration. I felt it. It was like a deep conviction that that was what's happening. I could feel Krishna behind the situation. And I could feel Krishna acting through his agent, in this case, Nityananda Pran Prabhu, helping me. And that kindness of Krishna through his agent and through the circumstances that I was experiencing was so deeply moving. I started to feel trusting towards Krishna and feeling like, this person is worth giving your life to. I may not be able to because of my own inhibitions and limitations and rebellious nature, etc., etc. That's okay. But I felt committed. This person is certainly worth giving my life to. So later that year, in 2009, there was another Japa retreat. I went for that too. And Maharaj, so I asked a question. Something hit me in class that was particularly on this topic. So I asked him about how can we become secure in our relationship with Guru and Krishna. And it was a question that really was meaningful for me. It was like coming from my heart. And his response was, you're in the right place. That is Gita Nagari, right? Chanting the holy name, 64 rounds and all that. And he said, the medicine for this age is the holy name. Elaborated. Everything is based on our relationship with the holy name. And he said, it'll be on Krishna's time and on Krishna's terms how that purification will happen, where you feel secure in your relationship with Guru and Krishna. So I learned from that because I focused on Krishna's time and Krishna's terms. Okay, I'm not in control. I can't put the effort to make it happen. And it's really on Krishna's time, which means I got to be patient. For me, being patient was like being a patient, right? I don't want to be a patient. And I don't want to be patient either. So that was very difficult for me to come to terms with, but I had to come to terms with it because it made sense. And it, was clear that that was something. So patience came partly from that experience. I want to read a couple of sections from Japa book which resonate with this idea. Hare Krishna. Okay. So our current condition, my condition at the time, lacking the spiritual depth to realize just how tiny we are, bewilders us into the conviction that we're actually significant. Filled with our own importance, we think the world should revolve around our desires, and we become frustrated and angry when it doesn't. Then, mistaking the identities of others, we quickly divide them into friends and enemies. So much suffering ensues from all this ignorance. That our consciousness becomes captured by false ego proves that we lack self-knowledge. We do not understand that we are Krishna's eternal servants, or that our identity in relationship with Him cannot be altered. It is simply who we are. Although being Krishna's eternal servant implies that we have an eternal relationship with Him, we nevertheless have turned our back on Him and have tried to separate ourselves from this intrinsic relationship. Because of that, listen to this very carefully because it's a very powerful statement. Because of that, we suffer existential emptiness. We are incurably lonely. We might have as many friends as we can possibly have, but without Krishna, we're incurably lonely. So a little later, he speaks about, this is by the way Burijan Prabhu's compilation. I highly recommend it for anyone who wants to improve their relationship with the holy name and improve their japa. This is where some of my feelings come out. So remember the transition of anarthas to Trinadapi Sunichena, right? Actually, humiliation seems to come even before humility. Humiliation comes before humility. If I compare the sankalpas I made with what I actually did and the results of that, the truth becomes clear. My determined effort to advance in Krishna consciousness, renouncing once and for all my anarthas, my offenses, and the petty material desires that have invaded my consciousness has not been successful. I become painfully aware of my own incapacity, overcome by things unrelated to Krishna, things I've chosen to indulge in. I now find myself embarrassed. Feeling of humility, pain, embarrassment is part of the journey of the soul back to Krishna. We have to be ready to become uncomfortable with those feelings. Because what they do is they lend one to become humble. He goes on, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prescribes humility as a path to pure chanting, for it will in time be followed by full dependence on Krishna. Humility is the natural result of the sincere desire to advance in Krishna consciousness. So as we try to chant the holy name with attention, what happens is we become embarrassed. And from that embarrassed position, we become more dependent on Krishna, more humble. And then the Trinadapi Sunichena verse starts to make a little bit of sense. It's not something more external, it's something more internal. It's not like something you put on humility. You start to feel, somebody glorifies you, you start to feel, if you knew, if you really knew what's in my heart. So towards the end of that year, Maharaj gave a series of talks called Paradoxes here in Chicago, December. That was the same year, 2009. Again, self-acceptance and self-improvement. Powerful set of lectures. Again, highly recommended for those who have not attended or heard those. Beautiful, most wonderful messages for us to internalize and realize that we're tiny and we're dependent on Krishna, and we should really just accept our current condition and move on. Rather than being insecure about it and trying to find fault with ourselves or projecting that others are finding fault with us or judging us or those kind of things, rather just accept it and move on. And the moving on point is just this, is how kind is Krishna? that He actually is reaching out to me and He cares about me personally. That He sent agents in my life, He's giving me teachings in my life, He's creating wonderful circumstances and situations, He's moving the material energy just so that me, this unworthy personality, is getting the benefit of His grace and His relationship. Okay. Skipping a few years. Challenges, a few years in between that were particularly challenging for me. Last year, 2016, I wrote down, these are my challenges of the year. My goodness, it's probably the most challenging year of my life. But I must say that I can say with conviction that even though it was the most challenging year of my life, it was perhaps the most, it was a year that I certainly felt closer to Krishna. And part of it, I feel, is that because of being able to speak about Krishna and speak about Krishna's holy name. So this is embarrassing, being here in front of you, sharing my life story, right? In one sense. At the same time, I didn't say no to it because I know this is purifying and it'll help me in my own japa. I've experienced it to some degree. So what I'm trying to share also is that if anyone gets the opportunity to share Krishna consciousness with others and give Krishna consciousness, or just explain about the glories of the holy name to whoever you might meet, it's fascinating how our own appreciation for the holy name, our own discipline in chanting the holy name, or taste of the holy name increases. Without the details of what the challenges are, I was going to share, but now maybe I'll mention one thing. In 2012, a very dear friend of mine, Krsnarcana Prabhu, he was almost 60 years old. He left his body because of cancer. And I would say it was a very gifted opportunity to be close to him and to serve him personally as he was experiencing the degradation of cancer, to the point of almost death. I was with him almost to the point he left his body. And it was a powerful experience. One, it gave me clear conception. Things are temporary. This was a person who was like very powerful in the sense, a lot of energy. He was able to do a lot of things. He had a lot of ideas, and he started Rath Yatra practically on his own in St. Louis. We were very good friends. We would share Krishna conscious realizations together. He was my senior in one sense too. But I saw how all of that energy was gone with time. So we tend to take shelter of temporary things, and it's a block to our chanting. So one thing that repeatedly comes to me while chanting is this experience that at my deathbed, everything I'm worried about now, who cares? Ultimately, who cares? It's really the only person who's going to go with me past death is this person that I'm chanting his name. He's the one who most matters. If I'm paying attention to someone else or something else, that's really being very silly, really silly. So that experience helped me to understand the temporality of things and to really find shelter in the holy name. So I'm going to conclude with a couple other things because my time's up. Bhujan Prabhu gives some tips on how to improve our chanting, and something that is important, he says, is to feel loved. There's a song that I sing when I complete my rounds of Haridas Thakur, his chanting. This is in Harinam Chintamani, he says, Adhama. He calls himself Adhama, the most lowest of all persons. And in that song, he is praying to the Lord, please somehow shower the nectar of the holy name upon me. Okay? Even though he feels himself Adhama, or the lowest of all persons, he has confidence and faith in the love of Krishna. So here's words by Burijan Prabhu. Fantastic. Many devotees struggle with chanting because before they can take shelter of Krishna's names, they have to travel through the desert of seeing the truth about themselves, that they have little sincerity or no taste, and that the mind is uncontrolled and filled with anarthas, and that they have no power to help themselves. This stage is necessary because it convinces us that we have nothing to depend on except Krishna's holy name. Only when we understand this fact can we chant with full heart. That we have nothing to depend on except Krishna's holy name. But it's not so easy to cross that desert. And some devotees give up before they reach the other side. It helps us to understand that Krishna loves us. Same point Prematani Mataji brought up, right? And we have to have this faith, this one thing, that Krishna loves us, that cares about us. I'm going to skip a little bit. He talks about Gopakumar entering the spiritual world. Then from a distance I saw him, his charming flute in hand. Running quickly, he emerged from among his friends and animals and approached me, saying in a sweet voice, "Look, Sridham, here's my dear friend Sarupa, the sun who shines on the lotus of your family." And then Krishna leaped forward and came close to me, compelled by the affection of his helpless devotee. I fainted in love at seeing him. He caught hold of me by the neck, and suddenly he too fell to the ground. Gopakumar, so this is commentary by Sanatana Goswami. Gopakumar was already aware, at least theoretically, that Krishna was very affectionate to his helpless devotees. But now he learned that Krishna had specifically affection for him. Merely seeing Krishna was enough to utterly enchant Gopakumar, but this new discovery pushed him towards the limit of ecstasy, that he also fainted. That Krishna loves me on a very personal level. So I'll end with that. Seek all of your blessings that my journey has just started in relationship to the holy name. And both of you bless me and all of you in the assembly, that somehow I can keep going, and maybe someday I might make it by your blessings to Krishna's association someday. Hare Krishna. Subal Prabhu, we need help.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Ramapada Swami Tinamine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pashcha Deshatarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnebhyo namo namaha. We were moving around prior to finding our final seats. Because we had some difficulty to decide the sequence of our speaking. Anyway, I felt adamant that I had to be in the middle because I see myself as more quiet and contemplative. So after Yamuna Jivana's very animated presentation. This is going to be a very quiet, contemplative kind of presentation. The title that we were given is Your Journey in Relation to the Holy Name. So I used a particular approach, which is something of my contemplation, a kind of internal contemplation, that was accompanied by a contemplation on one kind of work that I would do, which was creating visual images. So the contemplation is making sense of internal creation of visual images and the Holy Name and everything that's represented by the Holy Name. So I'll try and speak as I was contemplating. So Krishna tells us in Bhagavad Gita, in the 10th chapter and the 26th verse, of sacrifices, I'm the chanting of the Holy Name. Yagnanam japa yagnosmi. So Srila Prabhupada, he states that of all the sacrifices, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, it's actually the purest representation of Krishna. So there was a time when, in doing this fine art photography, I was sitting in front of a critic, and the person was giving a critique of a body of photographic work. So the person commented that the entire body of work was very representational. So, so in that body of work, so it's visual images, the art was representing a recognizable form. So what was depicted graphically was recognizable to, or could be recognized if one referred to the original same form. So in that particular work, the objects that were recognizable were objects that were present in nature, because that was the topic, but I'd extracted the objects from nature and photographed them out of context. So now the Holy Name, the Maha Mantra, represents Krishna as the object. So he is that supreme controller, the controller of everything. And the representation of Krishna in sound is so pure that he doesn't remain, he remains unchanged in the sound. So you can see this is rather extraordinary, because anything that one extracts from our physical realm and then attempts to put it into a more subtle form, a comparison has to be made. So one automatically knows that the original form is represented in the more subtle form, so in this case in a pictorial form, but still one is drawing a distinction. So one can say, oh, it's representational of. So Krishna's name, so it's a sound, so it's on a more subtle realm. It's actually representing Krishna, but it's completely pure and it's actually not changed in any way. So one doesn't think of the sound as different from Krishna, whereas in the visual image, the pictorial representation is different from that original three-dimensional form. So now, with that particular body of photographic work, I was actually examining mental associations. So, for example, something is extracted from nature. So one's beginning with one object in nature, and then looking at how the mind associates something with that object. So Krishna, the Supreme Person, he's such that everything is related to him. So in fact, everything has its identity in Krishna. So we create different relationships with different living entities, for example, but all of them are related to Krishna in terms of them being the marginal energy of Krishna. So they're actually still parts and parcels of Krishna. You can't fully separate those living entities from Krishna. So different from, say, doing the visual work, where there's even through processing, extracting something from nature and processing it mentally, the association is according to what's present in the mind, and it's kind of created. But with Krishna, everything actually relates back to him. And Krishna puts it this way: I'm the father of the universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I'm the object of knowledge, the purifier, and the syllable Om. I'm also the Rig, the Sama, and the Yajurveda. So that's Bhagavad Gita 9:17. So Krishna covers the full spectrum to try and paint that picture of how everything actually has its identity in relation to him. Since he's both mother, father, grandfather, the object of knowledge, so on the subtle plane also, he's the personality that's purifying everything. So now, I'm doing this backwards and forwards because this was how I had to contemplate things, because I was processing internally. So that's something of this contemplative journey. So for the art critic who was looking at this body of work, his terming work as representational meant that the forms were too recognizable, because what's valued in, I guess, the current time is that the object that's rendered pictorially is not so recognizable. One must somehow obscure it in some way. So now, for oneself, in understanding this position of Krishna and accepting the purity of his holy name as being representational of Krishna, means that one has to take a particular position internally. And that particular internal position is right in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Vyasadeva takes that position, and he says, so I've extracted a part of it because it's a very long statement that he makes in the opening statement of Srimad Bhagavatam, but he says, I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representation of the mundane world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. So that's the position one has to actually take. And it means that one's placing one's faith in the holy name as being the highest meditation and as being the supreme path of realizing oneself in relation to Krishna. So we understand everything is in relation to Krishna, but this requires huge faith, because one is going to have to take this path of meditating on Krishna's holy name in order to realize one's very self, one's very existence in relation to him. And Haridas Thakur, he states that the Smritis say that anyone who chants the holy name, whether with faith or neglect, attracts the merciful attention of Lord Krishna. And I think that was Yamuna Jivana's whole exposition, just to highlight that particular point. So the name is the purest form of knowledge. This is Haridas Thakur, the best of all vratas or vows, and the highest meditation. So we're hearing it from two of our acharyas, the highest meditation. And this is Srila Haridas Thakur quoted in Harinam Chintamani by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So by such meditation, it's not that one is artificially imposing something on the mind. So now looking at the artwork, the art critic, his idea that something shouldn't be so representational was that it would be better if an object of nature was seen in such a way that it could be represented in an abstract form or an unrecognizable form. Now, of course, for me, that was artificial because I was understanding that object in nature for what it is, and when I was representing it, I represented it for what it is, and the only artificial part for me, so to speak, was looking at it in terms of the associations in the mind. But for the art critic, he didn't want to see anything recognizable, so he wasn't seeing the metaphorical part. But now the reason that the meditation on the sound representation of Krishna is not this imposition on the mind, which we hear Srila Prabhupada in all our temples. We played that particular tape where Srila Prabhupada saying this in his fantastic voice. It's not an artificial imposition on the mind. Is that the mind has voluntarily chosen to chant the holy name. So it requires that volition. Therefore, it's not artificial. We're choosing. And so I'm contrasting it with, doing, say, if I were to follow the art critic's advice, I would be doing something artificial because I would be trying to impose a way of seeing that is specifically his way of seeing. But this is different with the chanting of the Maha Mantra. There's no imposition on the mind when one is voluntarily choosing to chant the holy name, having taken that position that this is the highest meditation and the way to realize oneself or one's identity in relation to Krishna. So now the uttering of the Maha Mantra, it allows for the hearing of the transcendental sound, and there's also an emotion that's outside of the mind, and that's a kind of transcendental ecstasy that's coming inbuilt in the holy name. And it's coming, Srila Prabhupada uses the term from the spiritual stratum. So usually we think of stratum, like in geography, the layers of the earth, going down to the bedrock. So within the holy name, it's kind of in its body, so to speak, in its subtle body is coming that inbuilt transcendental ecstasy. So it means that one is factually experiencing a different layer of consciousness. And that layer of consciousness, it's superior to the mind, what's in the mind. It's superior to the intelligence, of course, to the senses, those that are under the mind. And so the holy name remains free of any kind of adulterant, means you can't dilute it or change it in any way. So again, different from, when one's playing with visual creation of something, one can alter it through the medium, one can have different associations of the mind, and one can choose, okay, I'm going to combine this association with that object pictorially. Not so the holy name. It's completely free of any kind of adulterant. And it also acts as that transcendental process for reviving the unadulterated consciousness. So this sounds very, what's the word, when one puts something in a very short way, but I'll go on to explain. It means that the holy name, so there's the consciousness, and the holy name, that sound vibration is entering, accompanied with the transcendental ecstasy that's inbuilt. And it has a very profound effect on the consciousness. It actually starts to clean any kind of doubt and any kind of misgiving or any kind of fear. So as soon as there's the sound of the Lord represented by his holy name, all fear is vanquished. And this is very extraordinary. And actually, this is what Srila Prabhupada used to use to say, like Sharon Praswami was showing us the picture that he was referring to as the 1950s mirror, so the Cheto Darpana Marjanam, the cleansing of the heart. So Srila Prabhupada's advertisement for the holy name, so to speak, is that we can take advantage of these sounds and be free from all threatening problems of material existence. That is, if you were to put it, Srila Prabhupada's advertising line, so to speak. So he was encouraging the uttering of the sound of the Lord represented by his holy name, as sounded by Lord Chaitanya. Again, I will say it because it's our topic: Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, if we go back to Srila Vyasadeva and his turning to the meditation on Lord Krishna, we can see that unless one is inclined to be a devotee of the Lord, one cannot enter into these kind of intricacies of the holy name. So there has to be that inclination to want to be a devotee of Lord Krishna. So in this way, one needs to become a willing cooperator. You have to want to be part of the process. So often in coming to devotional life, and I think Yamuna Jivana was describing this right in the beginning, something of the resistance, but it's actually voluntary cooperation with persons who already are practicing devotional life or engaged in the transcendental devotional service of the Lord. That's a kind of necessary thing, because it's in that kind of context, this cooperating with persons who are practicing devotional service, that it allows one to start to learn the techniques of devotional service. And this learning is very progressive, because it allows one to proportionately start letting go of some of those material associations, because you're learning a new way of doing everything, a new way of looking at everything. And so in that context, as a willing cooperator, willingly cooperating with persons that are practicing devotional service, then the chanting of the holy name is permitted. It's actually been permitted. because one's in the company of saintly Vaishnavas who have got that devotional attitude and who have got that relish for the holy name. So in this way, the mind can start to become, and the attention can start to get fixed in the holy name. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says it's step by step. So everything's progressive. You know, you learn a new way of looking at something, you learn a new way of doing something, you start to discard the old material way of doing something. So it's very progressive, step by step. And that's actually acting as that kind of support in chanting, you know, step by step, and then the mind is slowly going step by step, getting more fixed on the holy name. So, and why this is, I'm painting this picture also, is that generally the mind may have some sort of apathy. Like I have a brother who compliments himself, or did for many years. He would say, you know, I'm just very apathetic. And he meant it that, you know, he was so intellectual that really not much mattered. You know, I'm very apathetic. So the mind in general has that kind of apathy. And particularly it's got an apathy towards the holy name, because one can understand how much has to, work has to be done. So this kind of apathy that's present in the mind, there has to be a method for tackling it. So apart from the one of being in the company of saintly Vaishnavas and learning all the new devotional practices, there's a second method for removing apathy in the mind, and I think it was highlighted a lot in the previous presentation. One can go and sit in a very quiet room, and this is given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. One can sit in a very quiet room and try and meditate on the holy name. And one that I see regularly, because I come and chant my rounds in the temple every morning, and I often smile when I see this one, but it's one takes a cloth, puts it over one's face, and chants. This is a very favorite one. I don't want to put the poor brahmacharis in the spotlight unnecessarily, but it's a very favorite one, the cloth over the head. But it's actually a recommended third method given by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And I always smile when I see it, but it's one of those things that actually help with alleviating this problem of apathy in the mind, because the mind recognizes it's going to have to discard so much. So it's very apathetic. So on the opposite end of voluntarily, on the spectrum of voluntarily embracing the chanting of the Lord's name, is the inattentiveness that could be present in the practice. So in constructing a photograph, for instance, I had to call upon my memory of material objects to associate something with whatever object I was beginning with in that particular project. And so one thing that one can understand, because I realized I had quite a good memory for a lot of material objects, and this is in Harinam Chintamani, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur specifically says that one's memory is absorbed in matter. So fortunately it served me well with constructing photographs, but in terms of this problem that the mind's already got this absorption in matter. So many material things, so many material objects are sitting in the mind that, you know, we pull them out, we examine them, we relish them, put them back in to take out another time and look at. So like that, in my case, I was not only taking out, but putting the physical object there, photographing it, you know, having the image visible. So what it actually means for chanting, because there's memory steeped in these material things, is that actually one's mind and attention can be so far away from chanting. And I think Prema Tarangini was highlighting this a lot, to try and look at particular techniques to help. So what happens then, because of this problem of the inattentiveness, that, you know, the memory is drawing one's attention much more than that pure sound representation of Krishna, is that one doesn't have much taste for that sound representation of Krishna. And so what then in effect happens is that that effect that's supposed to happen on the heart doesn't take place. So this problem is really quite a strong one, that this totality of what one remembers, I mean, it's a strong problem, is actually really steeped in those things that are material things. I mean, material objects. I mean, we're very comfortable with it, and we've put it in a subtle form into our memory. So that's what it's steeped in. Our entire memory is made up of physical material objects that we've transposed in a subtle way into the memory. So now, of course, we're chanting the transcendental sound vibration of Krishna. It's meant to revive spiritual senses. So this is a kind of relief. And these spiritual senses that will be revived, it's very much assisted, and this is part of going through many years of chanting, what I've understood. It's extremely helpful when there's a parallel track of a kind of formal and regulated offering of respect and service to the deity form of Krishna. It's kind of brings one's behavior, one's focus, one's attention in order, and it also helps with the discardal of unnecessary things, because it's a formalized offering of respect and service. So extremely helpful. And we found Srila Prabhupada speaking about this in Pancharatra Pradipa, or he quotes from Pancharatra Pradipa, I should say, and he explains it this way. The example is that the more you decorate the original, the more the reflection automatically is decorated. So our heart is the reflection of the original consciousness, Krishna. And the more Krishna and his paraphernalia is decorated, the more this will be reflected in the heart, and we will feel transcendental bliss. So it's very nice. Srila Prabhupada refers to this decorating Krishna as the original. I like that very much. So, so of course that transcendental bliss from decorating Krishna, it's automatically also present in the holy name. But the two working together, naturally, it's so strengthening. Now, this kind of revival of spiritual senses through audibly chanting the Maha Mantra on beads, and Srila Ramaputta Swami was emphasizing that in his earlier presentation, it's audible chanting and on beads. It has this advantage because it actually accomplishes three kinds of services to Krishna. There's hearing, there's chanting, and there's remembering simultaneously, just by presentation of Krishna. And of course, this is how Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says it should be done. So we heard Srila Prabhupada's recommendation. Here's Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. So again, that advertisement like the lady cleaning the mirror. This is Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur saying how one should do the chanting. or his recommendation, with full faith that the holy name and the person Krishna are one and the same, and discarding the nama apparats, and we spoke about just one of them I've touched, because tomorrow Sharon Praswami will be speaking on all of them, but the one I touched on was the inattentive chanting. One should chant in a lonely place with deep concentration. So this was Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's recommendation, and it comes from Harinam Chintamani. So we, on our side, because of this problem of everything our memory is made of, we need to consciously remember just our prayer that we so often say, Namo Brahmana Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So I offer my respectful obeisances to the Supreme Absolute Truth Krishna, who's the well-wisher of the cows and the brahmanas, as well as the living entities in general. I offer my repeated obeisances to Govinda, who's the pleasure reservoir for all the senses. So Krishna is that supreme object, and he's knowable through his eternal, unlimited names. So this was some short contemplation. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
So thank you all for coming. Our next program is at 5 o'clock. Over the past 15 years, I have spoken on many topics, Bhagavatam classes, Sunday feast, interfaith, addressing brand new people who come to the temple or at different locations. But today's topic is for me the most challenging. It's most challenging because some of you who know me very well, I'm a very private person. And it's very difficult for me to speak something that's private to me. And it's not because I'm humble. I am very humble. That's a different thing. But it's very difficult for me because I'm just not that type. Since my childhood, only a few people that I can openly speak with. Otherwise, I'm okay to speak with anyone. It's just that speaking like this is difficult. And out in the audience, some of you know me very well. Some of you know me well. Some of you are strangers. And some of you are just outright strange. So you can tell stuff for me. I'm of the conviction that in a devotee's life, his or her relationship with the holy name cannot be seen separate from the rest of what's happening in their life, especially for a practitioner. And there are certain things, certain activities, certain other elements that actually foster his or her relationship with the holy name, or even weaken that relationship. Just like from a mundane sense in any relationship, it's not just between those two persons, there is a whole environment. And that environment influences the individual in that a particular relationship. So, because it is about my journey with the holy name, I'd like to open the door a little bit for you to peek in to the, I guess, variations in that environment. Okay? Mind you, it is difficult for me, but I'm doing it because it's the order of the Guru. I'm going to take you back to 1993. And in 1993, my relationship with the Holy Name, as you want to call it, started as a very, I would say, love-hate relationship, where there was more hate and hardly any love. Because it's, you know, it's the devotee who gives you or facilitates your chanting of the Holy Name. And my very first introduction to such a devotee, even before I had met the devotee, I did not like that person. Because that person was very strongly preaching to my girlfriend at that time. And when we would meet in the evening, my girlfriend was speaking about what is the use of this life? This is the material world. There is more to life than this. So I wondered, who's this fellow who's talking to her? She's sitting right there, so she'll keep me honest. That's the person there. But she had a lot of interest in Krishna consciousness. I had none. So one day, she told me, come to the temple. And I went because I wanted to be with her. And as I walk up the steps of that temple, that brahmachari, oh, from that time I don't like brahmacharis except Giridhari. The first question that person asks me, do you smoke? Do you drink? Do you eat meat? And before he asked me the other question, I turned around and I said, who are you to ask me all this question? I told her, he's a very bad influence. And from that day, I didn't like the devotee. I didn't like this whole Hare Krishna thing. I liked the khichdi and I liked the samosas. So we worked it out that that's what I'll go for, and she can go for whatever else she wants to. And then a couple of years passed that way. It's a very beautiful environment in the Juhu temple. They have fantastic prasadam. And in 1995, I made the journey from India to America to come as a graduate student. And now I understand, I did not at that time, that the parting gift my girlfriend gave me was a Bhagavad Gita as it is and a Japamala. And so I kept that with me very, very, what should I say? I shouldn't say religiously because it doesn't make sense. Huh? Assiduously, wow. What does it mean? But anyway, I kept it. And you know that when you like someone, especially when young man likes a young woman or a young woman likes the young man, you have to tolerate the package that he or she comes with, right? It's like you have to say, I like the in-laws, because otherwise you'll lose the girl. So I had to say, I like the Hare Krishnas. That's how it was. So I took the Japamala, and I have to say every day that I like the in-laws. So I chanted every day. From that day onwards, in America, every day I chanted one round. Every day, very, very religiously, I chanted. But no one told me what this chanting is about. No one spoke to me about it. No one educated me about it. And no, I didn't even know that there are something called 16 rounds. I just thought you chant a round. I said, that I can do. And that's what I did. And every week, actually it's more than a week, but we would talk to each other. And I would say, I'm chanting Hare Krishna. I had to keep that going, right? So in my university dorm or whatever apartment, I used to play Srila Prabhupada's Hare Krishna Dhun. If everyone knows, it is one of my, there are two songs of Srila Prabhupada. Of course, everything about Prabhupada I like. These two songs I particularly like. One is the Vandeham, and the other is the Dashavatara Stotra. But for all these years, from 1993 till 2001, I did not know what Prabhupada was singing beyond the words Vandeham. I said, what is it after that? He would say something, and all for me it was some old man singing. So I said, but whatever he's singing is very sweet. And I would play it in my apartment. I didn't know what he was singing, but I used to like it. So one of my roommates came and said, your Hare Krishnas are your Hare Krishnas, like your in-laws have come. You know, it's almost like a warning. He said, your Hare Krishnas are in the student union. And I don't know what it was. I did not identify myself as a Hare Krishna. Something in me, I still can't explain what it is. I stood up, put on my shoes, and I ran to student union. I don't know why. I don't know why. I ran. I saw the devotees. There were brahmacharis there with the book table, and I bought a couple of cassettes. I don't know if you know what that is. It's a very special device, audio cassette. Audio cassettes of Prabhupada's Kirtan. I even bought a book. They never asked me my name and address. I never gave them my name and address, and there it ended. That's it. I brought it back, and I called her and said, oh, I bought some books about, but that's it. So we move forward to 2001. I'm going to skip a few things, but in 2001, the devotees invited me for some program, which I hesitatingly went. But because they were friends, I went. And I met other devotees there. Particularly met Prematarangani and Satyakumar Prabhus. And it happened that we went to school together. And from 8th or 10th grade, we went in different ways, and I happened to see her there, and I said, I think I know her. But I couldn't fully recognize, but anyway, we turned out that it was she. And so she invited us to her house for lunch. And that's what it's the preaching strategy. You feed prasadam. So she fed us really very nicely. I first walked into their home, and that was the first experience of being in a devotee's home. Because previously we had gone to Balaram's house as well. So right in the middle of the living room, there's a beautiful altar and two dolls with their hands raised. So I asked her, who are these dolls? Or what are these dolls? Was my first question. And she said, they are Nimai Nitai, they're Gaur Nitai. It didn't mean anything to me, so okay, what does that mean? But anyway, from there, friendship developed, we're part of their Bhakti Vriksha. The reason I'm narrating this is because you have to appreciate what's happening on the side. That's the whole idea. And we took up to still continuing to chant one round, but now studying Bhagavad Gita on this together. Then we happened to meet His Holiness Rompad Swami. And how we met him is also a whole different story for perhaps another day. If someone asks me, tell us how you met Maharaj, I'll tell you that. But in a simple statement, the meeting was actually for Hemangi to talk to him, and she was told, someone else also need to be in the room, not just you. So she said, tag along. All right. He went. And the very first meeting, more than speaking with her, he spoke with me. And my statement that I remember was, I have no attraction or understanding or appreciation of any of your Vaishnava teachings, because I was with some other group, or at least I would think I was of some other group. And I was studying their Bhagavad Gita, as it is not. So then Maharaj very nicely said, oh, that's just because you don't have much information or knowledge about the Vaishnava tradition. In due course of time. And I don't understand, what does he mean, due course of time? I'm not coming back again. What is due course of time? And lo and behold, as he was narrating yesterday, I get an email from him quoting Katha Upanishad, because it has my name in it and whatever. And so that's, but as soon as that contract started, somehow our, at least mine, appreciation for and some wanting to chant came up. And I came to know we were supposed to chant 16 rounds. Okay. And that was in March of 2016. And by Janmashtami of that year, we were chanting 16 rounds. And our whole plan was every festival, that was Sachikumar Prabhu's idea, that any festival or such time, try to increase one round. I said, why one? We'll do two. And quickly, one festival after they came, such that on Janmashtami day, we were chanting 16 rounds. Now, for me, my appreciation of our process of chanting Hare Krishna has a lot to do with other elements of bhakti. For me, particularly. For others, it may be different. I'm speaking for me. What gives me life and the intention to chant Hare Krishna are two things. One is, from the very early days, I came to appreciate that our philosophy is built on Vaishnava Seva. That somehow serving the devotees is the most critical element. Because without that, I found that chanting had no meaning. It had no relevance for me. And the other part was, and this is for me, that it's very difficult for me to serve someone that I don't know. Someone says, chant Krishna's name. I don't know Krishna. But if I know something about who he is and how he does certain things, it gives me a greater appreciation. I want to chant his name versus something else. So studying of, among all the activities of Krishna consciousness, some people like chanting japa, some people like kirtan, some people like something. For me, I like to read. That is the most connecting thing for me. Unfortunately, I don't get as much to do, but that is the thing for me. Because I'm very curious to know about the lives of others, especially the devotees in Bhagavatam. And not only just, that they were in some difficulty and Krishna took care of them, but I want to appreciate the different ways in which Krishna took care of them. And if you notice, it's not always the same. And for the same person, it's not always the same either. When Parikshit Maharaj was in the womb, Krishna came to protect in a particular way. But later, when Parikshit Maharaj, even the cursing of Parikshit Maharaj was Krishna's prompting. And later, the whole unfolding of the Bhagavatam, and why Krishna would behave this way versus that way. Why would Krishna respond to Prahlad Maharaj in this way and to someone else in another way? It's just too fascinating for me, and I like to know. Before I can chant his name, I would like to know. And another thing in my life, for some reason, I don't know why, things sort of almost spring up on me. I'm always surprised. I'm always called to do a service without much notice. So We met Maharaj in 2001 and 2002, Rath Yatra. This is July. So between March 2001 and July 2002, we're talking about 14 months. We're driving back home from Rath Yatra after singing and dancing, and I get a call. And the first words from him is, are both of your hands on the steering wheel? If someone asks you a question like that, you know what it means. They're going to say something that you'd rather hold on to the steering wheel really tightly. Long story short, his question that he dropped on our lap was, how about getting initiated tomorrow? If any of you knows Maharaj, if you ever bring up the topic of initiation, 99.9% the question he will ask is, how are you preparing yourself towards that step? This is how he prepared us for that step. Would you like to get initiated tomorrow? And then there was a whole story behind it. His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj was doing initiations at the temple, and he was there for Rath Yatra, so he had said, oh, it'd be nice, Maharaj, if you also initiate someone, we'll do it together. And Maharaj said, oh, no, I'm just not the spontaneous kind. I don't do things like this. I need to plan this. And there's nobody in my aspiring disciple, there's nobody worth it, ready for it. And our temple president at that time said, no, Nachiketa and Hema, they're there. He said, no, they're not even ready. Anyway, the dialogue went back and forth, and he said, all right, but I'll let you know tomorrow. So next day we were at Mangalarti at Sachikumar Prabhu's home. And Maharaj comes to Mangalarti, Bhagavatam class, breakfast, not a word. And someone told us we are supposed to fast, so we have a bead bag in hand, fasting, trying to understand, what are we doing? Is there initiation or no initiation? Is it happening or not happening? I'm also hungry, right? I just want to find out. So finally at 2:30 in the afternoon, he says, how would you like to participate in a loving relationship between two God brothers? So tonight, initiation at 5:30. In that 2 hours, Sachikumar Prabhu gave me extra new pair of dhoti and the chadar that he had, and we were here. So my point is, the reason for it, because taking initiation and chanting Hare Krishna is a whole different situation than chanting Hare Krishna before initiation. But somehow we took the vows that night that for the rest of my life, I'm going to be chanting these rounds in front of a packed room. But during our initiation, I took an extra vow that I haven't seen my God brothers after that take. Because in that initiation, His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj was also there, and among the 4 vows, or in addition to them, he also asks them, do you also commit to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the devotees for the rest of your life? So Maharaj, our Guru Maharaj, said, oh, in the same spirit as he's asking, what are the 4 principles? You'll chant how many rounds? And do you also commit to be the servant of the servant of the servant of the devotees for the rest of your life? And I said, yes. I've taken that very seriously, or I think I have taken it very seriously. It has been a very, very deep, it has made a very deep impact in my life, such that my chanting depends on that for me. And I've noticed that when I serve the devotees genuinely and happily, chanting is not a problem for me. Meaning, I don't think I have ecstasies and tears in my eyes. There are tears there for the vows I've made, like, wow, for the whole of my life. It's a different kind of tears. But to fulfill that service is not difficult. And the moment I either don't serve the devotees or I have some hang-up with any devotee, then I find that my chanting Hare Krishna has to be done with some very extra effort and prayers and all that. And from then on, our training in those, I would call earlier days, not as early as yours, but our earlier days, we were to write weekly reports to Maharaj. And if we missed one day of the week, we would get an email. I didn't get your report. And if I were to send the report, it would be scrutinized. Why did you wake up at 4:30 on Tuesday? Why did you go to bed late on Thursday night? I had to give an explanation. I appreciate that very much because it put me on a track that I didn't know how beneficial it will be for the rest of my life. So from that on, in fact, just before that though, we used to chant all our 16 rounds by 5:30 in the morning. Read for an hour and hear for an hour by 8 o'clock before going to work every day. If I missed, I would get a call from him. Why did you miss? One of our brahmacharis, Jai Jagannath, I was just getting to know him at that time. I'm saying this because there's an appreciation for Maharaj. He felt that Maharaj was giving more attention to the grahasthas in the congregation. And he would always wonder why he spends time in Palatine or Naperville. So one day he drove Maharaj to come to our place. And he stayed the night with us. And because he's a temple brahmachari, he has the habit of waking up early. And so he woke up early and came to chant at 4:30. And we were used to getting up at 3 o'clock. So we were already there chanting Hare Krishna. And we did Mangalarti, Tulsi Puja, Bhagavatam class, and he was completely floored. He told Maharaj, your grahasthas, because we were a bunch of us there, your grahasthas are more austere than the brahmacharis. But the appreciation was that they wake up so early to chant. He's still like that, very particular, and he put it in us. So at that time, or during that phase, I went from saying that formally saying that I liked the in-laws to actually now feeling that they're part of my family. So my chanting of Hare Krishna had a whole different flavor to it, if you will. Because of the presence of the spiritual master and the devotees and the study of Prabhupada's books. Then at some point came a time when, as I said, things changed. I went through a very difficult situation. I had a little, what is that, Giridhari? My appendix burst. And it was almost a life and death situation. The doctor said that when the appendix bursts like that and the abdomen is full of abscess, a person usually dies. Somehow I did not die. In fact, a week before that, with the pain, we were preparing for Rath Yatra. On Rath Yatra day, we were dancing, and there was this nagging pain, but I thought it was from the pakoras the previous day. Who knows? I don't know. So we were just dancing and singing, and she kept telling me, maybe you should get it checked. And next morning, I preparing for Mangalarti, and I fainted, I blacked out. And when I opened my eyes, I was sprawled on the floor. And Maharaj was staying with us at that time, and when he said, I think I need to go to the hospital at the ER, he said, well, if you're alive, we'll see you again. And at that time, the whole chanting of Hare Krishna had a whole different flavor to it. The flavor was, I've just begun. I haven't even scratched the surface of what this bhakti process is. Please give me a chance. Please give me another chance. I couldn't say, Krishna tvadiya padapad pankaja panjarantam adyeva. Right now you can take my life. I couldn't say that. I said, that's why I relate more with Ajamil. Second chance, I relate to that a lot more. I said, I need another chance. I can't just go like this. And in the hospital that I was there, I can't say that I chanted with attentiveness. I chanted out of duty. I knew that I had to complete those rounds. Sometimes I would chant. While I was chanting, because of the antibiotics, I would fall asleep. And I wouldn't know what's going on. But in my mind, I had to do it. So there was no idea, no thought of it has to be done attentively, tastefully, feelingly. It was just had to be done. And I go through that phase again in life later, that it has to be done. So the relationship, basically what I'm trying to get at is the relationship has been very dynamic. Some years, for a good part of the year, it was really thriving. It's like, I'm sorry, but I have to get back to husband-wife relationship because that's the one that I most relate to and I speak about. So dating and marriage are two different things, right? Once you get married, it's the same person you're seeing anyway. And after some time, or if you've been married for a while, you start taking each other for granted. So I went through the phase of chanting Hare Krishna also like that. I took it for granted. I would do it. It's like, you see the wife, how are you? How are you? How was the day? I was okay. Next thing, you move on. They're living in the same house, perhaps without much interaction. The interactions are very formal. I shouldn't say formal, just matter of fact. There isn't a loving investment in the relationship. You're being dutiful, you're being loyal, you're being in fidelity, but no investment. So I went through that phase too. And as I said, characteristic of my life is I am asked to do some Maha services without much notice. So one was initiation, and then in 2008, one fine morning as I'm chanting my rounds, I get a call from my spiritual master. Would you like to be a temple president? That's how it happened. And as a temple president, since that time, I'm skipping much details, not to bore you. From that time, my chanting of Hare Krishna had a whole different flavor to it. It was a different environment. It was different than my schedule of how I would like to do things. I would like to get up earlier, but then I didn't have previously the same obligations of going out to someone's house. If you're ever a temple, I think everyone should be a temple president for at least some period of time. You know why? Not because I want you to feel the misery or agony. That's not why. Because in that service, you're in the most difficult position where people come and say, please come to my house. And if you go to someone and not to someone else, then they feel offended. And they think, oh, you don't like me, you like me, it's like this. And it's not like that. It's just humanly not possible. And the second was, at that time, because of my health, I decided I'm going to follow the Maharaj diet. It never works for me, but anyway, I thought I'll follow that. I've had devotees tell me, please come to my house for prasadam and don't follow your diet, because I can't cook for you like that. I want you to eat what I cook. So those obligations naturally affect, how, when you wake up, when you go to bed, when you wake up. So I was so used to 8:30, 9 o'clock, lights off. But then my life transitioned into 11, 11:30, midnight, plus somehow dealing with people's issues. Prabhu, this thing, that thing, this thing, that thing. So naturally, getting up early in the morning, fresh, I want to chant Hare Krishna is not the kind of lifestyle. It was, I have to get my rounds done. I also was dressing the deities, counseling people, looking at our finances, this situation, that situation. So I went through that phase where it's like husband and wife in the same house, more like roommates. You fulfill your obligations, like you put down the toilet seat, you make sure the plants are watered, you make sure you pay your rent. It's like that. I did that too. But what pulled me through all of that, either difficult, the lows or the highs, again is Vaishnava Seva. Every time I would find myself in the lowest of situations, I would go out of my way to serve a devotee or the devotees. So next time I'm serving the devotees, it's not necessarily that I'm in the lowest. I'm just making a disclaimer. I like to serve devotees anyway. And parallelly, I've come to appreciate that when we say holy name of Krishna, I don't think that we are limited to Hare Krishna mantra, because that is the encapsulated, potent mantra. But the Bhagavatam is full of Krishna's names, as we hear in the second verse, that you have hundreds and thousands of names, and each name is invested with unlimited potency, because each name has a certain potency of Krishna. And I've come to appreciate Krishna through all of his wonderful characters. I shouldn't say all, many of his characteristics. And in my services over the years, each time certain aspect of Krishna has helped me. When I certain name that I take and I stay with it and I think of and I pray to that aspect of Krishna. For example, one of the names of Krishna is Achyuta. I've come to appreciate that in the entire Bhagavad Gita, that is the name by which Krishna is introduced to us. Ratham Sthapaya Me Achyuta. And the word Achyuta is one who never falls down. It also means one who never fails his devotees. And in the phase of my life of being or transitioning into being a temple president, leaving my full-time job situation, that name Achyuta came to my rescue every day. Because I would chant and I would speak about it. I would share with the devotees. Because when Krishna's name is Achyuta, that means he will never let us down. And true to that, to whatever that mustard seed worth of, understanding or appreciation of realization I have about Krishna, that word Achyuta is so true. He is Achyuta in so many different ways. He's never let me down. He's also never let other devotees down. Even if, let's say, I was having some contention with another devotee, which, by the way, if you've realized, in the family of devotees, it's not always rosy. There's always something or the other with devotees, right? Am I? Or is it only me? None of you perhaps can't relate to it because you have no problems with any devotees. I have. I used to have, I still have, and I'm sure I will have. But as far as Achyuta, he took care of me and he took care of that devotee too in such a wonderful ways. So as a practice then, I began studying the Padyavali. If you've not read the book, I beg you, take a copy and just read one verse of it once in a while also, it's okay. All of his beautiful names in different activities are described so beautifully. So I became a regular reader and studier of the Padyavali, just so that I could chant my rounds with the promise that I made every day. So different names of Krishna have different meanings for different circumstances and situations. That is why in the Bhagavad Gita too, Arjuna is not always calling Krishna, Krishna. He changes his names. He calls him different things, different names for invoking different aspects of Krishna. So back to, I want to know why, or whose name I'm chanting, and why I'm chanting his name. So that's been my short, but that which seems very long journey, chanting of Hare Krishna. every day, for many years, we would chant with the Sikshashtakam as a guide. We've heard Maharaj also. And it was like a routine. First 2 rounds, verse number 1, next 2 rounds, verse number 2, like that. In the first 6 months of doing that, all through 16 rounds, I would recite, the 8th verse of Sikshashtaka. Aslisyava padaratam pinashtumam. As I came to know the meaning of that verse, I haven't moved past verse number 2. Because it is genuine that there are times and cases where I have absolutely no taste, no intention to chant my rounds. Just because what I'm dealing with is too big, too intense. So at that time, I have to go into the mode of feeling obliged. I have to do it because I promised. But to come out of it, I've always found serving the devotees has worked wonderfully. That's one. And second is whenever I've cried in desperation to Lord Nityananda, it has worked wonders. Not that I've had some great realizations or anything. It has worked wonders. It has brought me out of that situation, that phase of, no taste. So if it has any value, praying to Lord Nityananda has been the most beneficial thing for me to even, because he's the giver of the holy name, and serving the devotees. I'll leave you with one anecdote that made very deep impact for me on that particular day in that situation. I had dressed the deities in the morning. Previous night was a very, very late night, so I had about 3 hours of sleep. And being a temple president means after everyone knew that by 8:30 Bhagavatam class is over, and that's when they can make a phone call. And my phone would start at 8:30. It would ring and one after the other, because they all knew Bhagavatam class is over, he's available. So I wouldn't get any chance to take a nap, rest. It was that kind of time at that time. So His Holiness Maharaj was here, and we were talking in the lobby, and he had drank some water from a bottle like this and left the bottle there with water in it. On that occasion, somehow I felt that water was the most valuable thing that I found that morning. I've had Mahaprasadam from the spiritual master. I've had Mahaprasadam from the deities, from other wonderful Vaishnavas, many, many times. We hear wonderful stories of it. On that day, I was so desperate for that water that I chugged down that bottle. And something that I can't explain. Moments later, I came here and I sat there. And if you know me, some of you who know me, I can't sit on the floor with... it's called Sukhasana, but for me it is Dukhasana. It was very difficult. But I sat there, closed my eyes, and chanted 16 rounds in I felt so happy and rejuvenated. After that, I've grabbed that water from him many times, but it does not work like that. It is not. So something on that day, the dose of mercy was so important for me that I got it. So we may try this, we may try that, and we should try different things. But whatever we're trying is to beg for that little drop of mercy from Lord Nityananda. That's, if anything I can share, that's what I can share. And it's 4:30, we're out of time. Thank you for listening. It's been difficult for me, but you've been a very encouraging audience, so thank you. Thank you, both of you. You gave me the time to gather some courage. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you so much. So, there's going to be kirtan outside. That is the plan by our Jasananandan Prabhu, who is always meditating on some nice